We call it being a good person because we do not shout. We think we are peaceful because we have learned to hide our irritation behind a polite smile. But inside, in the quiet moments when the world is not looking, we feel a strange heaviness. We lie awake at night, replaying a conversation from 5 years ago and wishing we had said something different. We feel a cold shiver of anxiety when we think about what might happen tomorrow. We feel a dull, gray boredom when we look at our ordinary lives. We call these things stress, or guilt, or worry. And yet, despite all our efforts to be calm, the heaviness never really leaves us. We promise ourselves that we will stop being so hard on ourselves. We read the books. We listen to the advice. We try to think positive thoughts. But have you noticed that the more you try to push the fear away, the more it haunts the corners of your mind? The more you try to fix your past mistakes with regret, the more those mistakes seem to define who you are today. We are in a constant state of internal repair, but the machine never seems to run smoothly. What if the problem isn't that you are flawed? What if the problem is the very way you are trying to handle these emotions? Buddhism offers a perspective that is sharp as a diamond and clear as a mountain stream. It suggests that fear and regret are not separate from anger. They are simply different masks worn by the same energy of resistance. Today, we are going to explore the many faces of hatred. We will see why we are always fighting ourselves, and how to finally put down the weapons. But before we begin, there is a secret about your own heart that is hidden in plain sight. Almost nobody notices the tiny no we say to life before every moment of pain. If you can see that no, you can unlock the door to true freedom. To understand this deeply, we must look at the Buddhist name for this energy, which is dosa. Most people translate dosa as anger or hatred. They think it only applies to the person who screams in traffic or the person who holds a violent grudge. But dosa is much broader and more subtle than a simple explosion of rage. Dosa is the fundamental attitude of aversion. It is the mental act of pushing something away. It is the desire for non-existence, the wish that this should not be happening. Think of dosa as a psychological wall you build between yourself and reality. Every time you encounter an experience you do not like, you build a piece of that wall. You say, I don't want this feeling. I don't want this person here. I don't want this part of my past. This resistance creates a friction in the mind, and that friction is the heat we call suffering. Let us look at a powerful image from the ancient scriptures to understand how this works. The Buddha once compared a person driven by dosa to a festering wound. Imagine you have a deep, painful wound on your arm that is full of pus. If someone accidentally brushes against you, or if a small piece of wood hits that spot, the pain is explosive. The pus flows out, and you react with instant bitterness and rage. The problem isn't the person who brushed against you. The problem isn't the piece of wood. The problem is the internal pressure, the infection that is already there, waiting for a reason to burst. We are often like that festering wound. We carry a vast amount of hidden resistance in our hearts, seeds of past pain and future fear. When the world touches us in a way we don't like, we think the world is the cause of our pain. But the world is just the stick that poked the wound. The dosa was already there, hidden in the shadows of our subconscious, in the teachings of Master Vien Minh. He calls this attitude the no to the present moment. Every time we say no to what is actually happening, we are nurturing that wound. Let us explore the first mask of this hidden dosa, which is fear. Most people think fear is the opposite of anger. They see fear as something weak and fragile, and anger as something strong and aggressive. But in the mechanics of the mind, they are the same process of aversion. When you are afraid of the future, what are you actually doing? You are imagining a situation that has not happened yet, and you are saying no to it in advance. You are pushing away a possibility. You are resisting a phantom. Fear is simply anger that is directed toward a future event. It is the aversion to uncertainty. Imagine you are waiting for the results of a medical test. Your mind is racing. Your heart is tight. You are paralyzed by worry. What is that worry? It is the ego saying, I will not accept it if the news is bad. It is the will to become a healthy person in the future, and the total rejection of any other outcome. This resistance is dosa, because you are fighting reality. You are being burned by the fire of your own imagination. The second mask of dosa is even more common, and that is regret. Regret is anger directed toward the past. It is the mind replaying a tape and screaming, this should not have happened. When you sit in your chair and feel the weight of guilt for a mistake you made, you are being aggressive toward yourself. You are hating the person you were in that moment. You are trying to murder a part of your own history. Master Vien Minh explains that this is a great trap of the ego. The ego loves to regret because it makes the ego feel important and in control. It gives you the illusion that you could have been different, that you were in total control of the universe. But the truth is, in that past moment, you acted according to your understanding and the conditions at the time. By hating the past, you are just adding a second arrow of suffering to the first one. The past is a finished phenomenon. It is gone, but your resistance to it is happening right now. That resistance is dosa, and it is poisoning your present moment. Let us look at the third mask, which is boredom or depression. This is a very subtle face of dosa that many people fail to recognize. When you feel bored, you are essentially saying no to the present moment. You are saying, this is not enough. This is too ordinary. I want something more exciting. Boredom is a mild form of hatred toward the current reality. Depression is often a heavy, thick layer of dosa that has been turned inward for a long time. It is the total rejection of your own existence. It is the mind saying, I don't want to be here. I don't want to feel this. Because the resistance is so vast and so constant, the mind becomes exhausted and shuts down. The fire of anger has burned everything until only gray ash remains. But even in that ash, the root is still dosa. The root is still no. Why do we do this? Why do we keep wearing these masks of hatred? The root cause, as the Buddha pointed out, is ignorance or avidya. We are ignorant of the true nature of things. We believe in a solid, permanent self that must be protected at all costs. When we feel fear, we think the self is in danger. When we feel regret, we think the self has been diminished. When we feel envy, we think another person's self is overshadowing our own. Envy and stinginess are also powerful forms of dosa. Envy is anger at someone else's happiness. Stinginess is the fear of loss, which is the aversion to the natural flow of giving. All of these states arise because we are trying to control a reality that is fundamentally uncontrollable. We are like people trying to hold back the ocean with a plastic bucket. The more we try to control, the more we fail. The more we fail, the more we get angry, or afraid, or depressed. Let us look at another image from the teachings. The metaphor of the boiling water. Imagine you have a large bowl of water. If you want to see your reflection in that water, it must be still and clear. But if you put that bowl over a fire, the water begins to boil. Bubbles rise. The surface thrashes, and the steam clouds everything. Could you see your face in that water? Of course not. Dosa is that fire. When your heart is boiling with fear, or simmering with regret, or steaming with envy, you cannot see the truth. You cannot see yourself as you really are. You see a distorted, ugly, or terrifying version of reality. This is why an angry or fearful person always makes the wrong decisions. They are not seeing the world. They are seeing the steam. Master Vien Minh teaches us that the solution is not to fix the water. If you try to stop the bubbles with your hands, you will only get burned and create more waves. The solution is to simply see the process of boiling. This is the principle of just seeing and not repairing. To go deeper into the mechanics, we must understand how a reaction is born. It starts with a contact, or facet. Your eyes see a messy room, or your ears hear a sharp tone from a spouse. Immediately, a feeling arises, which is Vedana. In the case of dosa, this feeling is always unpleasant or painful. At this moment, the ego makes a move. It craves for that painful feeling to not exist. This is called abhavatanha, the craving for non-existence. You want the mess to be gone. You want the sound to stop. You want the feeling in your chest to vanish. Dosa is the weapon the mind picks up to fulfill that craving. You think that by getting angry, or by running away in fear, or by dwelling in regret, you can eliminate the pain. But dosa is itself painful. You are trying to escape a small fire by jumping into a volcanic crater. The Buddha said that being angry is like picking up a hot coal to throw it at someone else. You are the one who is burned first. When you are afraid, you are burning with the heat of future threats. When you regret, you are burning with the heat of past shadows. This heat prevents your mind from returning to its natural state of peace, which is nirvana. Nirvana is often described as the cooling down of these fires. It is not a distant heaven. It is what remains when you stop the no. Master Vien Minh emphasizes 3 factors that act as the antidote to these masks: caution, attention, and observation. Caution is the sensitivity to notice the first spark of resistance. It is like walking on a frozen pond. You feel each step. You listen for the first crack. If you are cautious, you will notice the tiny no, the moment a child spills milk. You will see the irritation before it turns into a mask of rage or a lecture on responsibility. Attention is the ability to stay with the reality of the moment. When fear of the future arises, attention pulls you back to the present. It asks, what is actually happening right now? In this second, are you being eaten by a tiger? No. In this second, there is only a breath, and a sound, and a sensation. Everything else is a story painted by the ego to justify its dosa. Observation is the act of watching the entire drama without taking a side. You see the feeling arise. You see it peak, and you see it pass. By returning the phenomena to itself, you realize it is not your fear. It is just fear being known. There is a massive difference between these two states. When you say, I am afraid, you are the boiling water. When you see, there is a sensation of fear being known. You are the space in which the water is boiling. The fire cannot burn the space. The bubbles cannot disturb the space. Space has no I to be insulted, no past to regret, and no future to fear. The goal of our practice is to return to this original face of knowing nature. But we must be careful of the traps that wait for us on this path. The first trap is the will to become. Many people hear these teachings and say, I will work hard to become a person who never feels fear. They turn the path into a new project for the ego to feel superior. They set up a goal in the future, and they judge themselves every time they fail. But this trying to become peaceful is the ultimate form of dosa. You are being angry at your current lack of peace. You are building a bigger, more spiritual ego that is even more fragile than the old one. Master Vien warns us that true awareness is effortless. It is like a mirror. A mirror does not try to reflect. It just reflects because that is its natural function. If fear comes, the mirror reflects fear perfectly. If joy comes, the mirror reflects joy perfectly. The mirror doesn't say, I only want to reflect joy. When you stop trying to become something else, you finally find the peace that was always there. The second trap is the forest of words. We can learn all the definitions of dosa. We can explain why fear and regret are the same thing. We can talk about non-self and aversion for hours. But if we do not actually see the heat in our own blood when a colleague takes credit for our work, the words are useless. Knowledge is just a menu. You cannot eat the menu and satisfy your hunger. You must experience the taste of the food, even if the food is a bitter moment of anger. Seeing the truth in 1 second of real irritation is more valuable than reading 10,000 books. The third trap is the observer self. This is when the ego hides behind the awareness and says, look at me. I am so mindful. We start to take pride in our knowing nature. But the moment there is pride, there is a self that needs protection. And the moment there is a self, there is a target for dosa to hit. True knowing has no owner. It is just a function of the universe reflecting reality. Let us bring this into a real-life situation to see the depth of dosa. Imagine you are at a family gathering. A relative makes a sarcastic comment about your career or your appearance. Immediately, the mask of regret might rise. I should have done better. I am a failure. Or the mask of rage might rise. How dare they say that to me? Or the mask of fear. What if everyone else thinks I am a loser too? In that moment, stop. Be cautious of the no in your heart. The immediate desire for that comment to have never been spoken. Pay attention to the raw sound of the voice and the heat in your face. Observe the masks trying to pull you into their play. Don't fight them. Don't judge yourself for having them. Just hold them like a mother holds a crying baby. A baby is crying because it is in pain. Your fear, your rage, your regret are just parts of your human experience that are in pain. When you hold them with total presence and no desire to fix them, the energy of dosa has nowhere to go. It has no fuel to burn. It settles, it cools, and it returns to the truth of its own accord. This is how we live in harmony with the natural law. We stop being mechanics trying to repair a broken universe. We start being witnesses to a magnificent, if sometimes painful, process. The Buddha taught that everything that arises from a cause will also pass away when the cause is removed. The cause of all these masks is your resistance. When you stop the no, the dosa dies. When the dosa dies, the fire goes out. And when the fire goes out, you are left with what Buddhism calls the coolness of nirvana. Imagine walking through your day and meeting every challenge with this coolness. Someone is rude to you, and you see it as a mirror reflecting their own internal pain. You make a mistake, and you see it as a lesson without needing to punish yourself with regret. You face a difficult task, and you meet it with focus instead of being paralyzed by fear. This is not a fairy tale for saints. It is the natural result of right view, or samadhi. It is the direct experience of seeing is letting go. You do not have to try to let go of fear. Once you see that fear is just an illusion of the ego trying to control an uncontrollable future, your hand naturally opens. The mask falls off, and you see your own original nature, clear, vast, and undisturbed. Life is not something to be managed or fixed. It is something to be seen. Every face of anger, every shadow of fear, every weight of regret is a holy opportunity to wake up. They are the sticks poking your wound, but they are also the teachers pointing you back to the light. Don't run from them. Don't fight them. Just turn on the light of awareness and see the rope on the floor. There was never a snake. There was only your imagination trying to protect a ghost. The fire of dosa is high in this world, but you carry the cool water of knowing nature within you. One moment of presence is all it takes to break the chain of 1,000 years of reaction. Be kind to your masks. See the pain behind them. And then, with a gentle smile, let them pass like clouds across the infinite sky of your heart. You are the sky. You were always the sky. There is a beautiful story in the scriptures about a spirit called a yaksha. This yaksha was small and ugly, but it sat on the throne of the king of gods. When the other gods saw it, They became furious. They shouted at it. They cursed it. They threatened it with weapons. But a strange thing happened. The angrier the gods became, the larger and more beautiful the yaksha grew. It fed on their anger. It grew so large that it began to swallow the entire heaven. Finally, the king of gods returned. He understood the nature of the yaksha. He knelt down and spoke with total humility and kindness. He welcomed the yaksha as an honored guest. The moment he stopped resisting, the yaksha began to shrink. It became smaller and smaller, uglier and uglier, until it finally vanished. Your dosa, in all its forms, is that yaksha. If you fight your fear, it becomes a giant. If you fight your regret, it swallows your life. If you fight your anger, it burns your house down. But if you welcome it with awareness, if you see it for what it is, it has no power. It simply returns to the void from which it came. Master Vien Minh often says that we should not seek to be anything other than what we are. If you are angry, be the one who knows anger. If you are afraid, be the one who knows fear. This knowing nature is the only thing that is never touched by the fire. It is the only thing that is truly free. As you leave this video today, don't try to remember everything I said. Don't try to be a better person. Just be a little more curious about your own no. Notice when you are pushing the present moment away. Notice when you are painting a snake on a rope. And in that moment of noticing, just breathe. Feel the raw energy in your body without the story. Watch the water boil without trying to stop it. And wait for the cooling to happen by itself. It always does. Because it is the law of nature. Everything I have just said is only a skillful means. Do not mistake the finger for the moon. Do not believe these words. They are merely a raft to cross the river. Go beyond the concepts and see reality exactly as it is. Observe your next breath, your next step, or your next thought with gentle awareness. Your life is your only teacher. The truth is not in what I say, but in what you discover for yourself. Right here and now, may you find peace in the simplicity of being. Be well and stay awake.